One question has lingered in the hearts of gospel music enthusiasts worldwide for many years. People ask this issue in late-night talks following concerts, in church hallways, and in comment sections. No matter how much time goes by, this question never seems to go away. Why won't the Gaither Vocal Band ever fully reunite in the same manner? The organization that influenced contemporary Southern gospel. The voices were like family, the harmony that filled millions of households with peace, joy, and faith. Mark Lowry, the comic, storyteller, songwriter, and person to whom many fans felt the strongest connection, was at the center of it all. Mark softly sidestepped the subject, laughed at rumors, and grinned during interviews for decades. He never made an attack on anyone. No one was ever blamed. He only stepped forward, listening to the music as the silence deepened. For the first time, though, Mark is facing the facts head-on. He's no longer defending the past. He isn't concealing himself behind humor either. Contracts are not at issue here. It has nothing to do with money. Furthermore, it has nothing to do with ego. Fans have no idea how much more terrible and human Mark's last revelation is. Sometimes the reason something lovely never comes back together isn't because it didn't work, but rather because it worked so thoroughly and intimately that destroying it almost broke the individuals who were a part of it. Additionally, the plot doesn't start with a breakup. Love, brotherhood, and a connection that once seemed unshakable are the starting points. The reasons the Gaither Vocal Band once feel unbreakable. For many years, the Gaither Vocal Band felt more like a family united by humor, faith, and a common goal than just a bunch of singers. They were viewed by admirers worldwide as brothers who prayed, traveled, and worshiped together. Their bond was real, their stage chemistry was organic, and their harmonies felt seamless. With his candor and sense of humor, Mark Lowry frequently brought warmth to the group, giving viewers the impression that they were a part of something intimate. Nobody could have predicted at the time that the Gaither Vocal Band would exist in pieces, rather than as a single, cohesive voice. Their music was firmly anchored in mutual respect and similar beliefs, making separation seem unthinkable. The silent change behind the grins. Many fans were unaware of the gradual changes that were taking place behind the scenes. There wasn't a single disagreement or a significant fallout. Rather, it was the subtle change that occurs when individuals develop in various ways. Every member started to feel drawn to a distinct calling. Some were more interested in ministry, while others were more interested in personal endeavors, spending time with family, or pursuing their creative passions. Later on, Mark Lowry realized how subtle yet significant these modifications were. Everything remained the same on stage. Outside of the stage, there were fewer talks, more rigorous timetables, and a less organic sense of unity. Mark Lowry's internal conflict. In this fictional account, Mark Lowry talks of having a silent burden in his heart in those final years. He had a great passion for the group, but he was also under pressure from fans, the industry, and even himself. Being a member of such a legendary group required one to continuously live up to a level that offered little opportunity for personal development. Since Mark has always valued emotional transparency and honesty, he began to feel as though his own personality was gradually being constrained. Not on purpose by the group, but by the framework that resulted from sustained success. Why nothing was healed by time. Many people think that time solves everything, but according to Mark, time can often have the opposite effect. It clarifies distinctions. As time went on, it became clear that the members' future goals had diverged. While some felt compelled to discover new avenues for expressing their creativity and beliefs, others wished to maintain the tradition in its entirety. These were just alternative paths, not malicious intent. Mark understood that forcing a reunion would be an act of disregarding rather than respecting those distinctions. Reunion pressures emotional cost. Fans frequently wonder why the group doesn't get back together as they believe it would make everyone happy. However, Mark notes that there may be emotional consequences associated with reunions. Re-entering an old dynamic might cause wounds that were never intended to be seen by the public to resurface. In this tale, he conveys the idea that love doesn't necessarily entail returning. Occasionally, it just means letting things end where they ended. For him, maintaining peace took precedence above meeting expectations. Letting go, faith, and forgiveness. The part of Mark's essay when he discusses faith is among the most potent. He clarifies that forgiveness does not always result in the same kind of restoration. Faith sometimes instructs you to let go instead of rebuilding. There is only acceptance and no resentment in his heart. In its time, the group's voyage fulfilled its mission, impacted millions of people, and exalted God. Since the individuals involved are no longer the same, attempting to replicate it would not convey the same spirit. Why never doesn't equate to remorse. Mark does not express grief or rage when he states that the Gaither Vocal Band will never truly reconcile. He states it clearly. He clarifies that endings do not negate meaning in this made-up story. The influence endures across generations, the music endures, and the memories endure. Saying never shows respect for the past rather than rejection. Some things, in his opinion, are designed to be remembered rather than repeated. The fan's message from Mark Lowry. Mark speaks directly to the fans near the end of this tale. He expresses gratitude to them for taking the songs into their own life and for their intense love for the group. He kindly requests that they recognize that artists are people too, evolving and developing like everyone else. The fact that the group no longer performs together on stage does not negate the genuine affinity that existed between the members. A tradition that doesn't require a reunion. The Gaither Vocal Band doesn't need to get back together to be meaningful, which is a serene yet poignant conclusion to the narrative. They have already left their mark on listeners' hearts, homes, churches, and places of worship all around the world. Mark Lowry's last thought is one of thankfulness rather than grief. Gratitude for music that meant, for a season that changed his life, and for the ability to move on without having to change the past. One thing becomes gradually apparent. The question of whether the Gaither Vocal Band will ever fully reunite has little to do with music. It has to do with people. Time is of the essence. It's also about the silent, emotional price of attempting to relive something that has already given everything it has. Fans have clung to hope for years. I hope that one day everyone's voices will be heard together once more. I wish that the familiar warmth, the harmonies, and the laughing would all return to their former state. Love, not pressure, was the source of that hope. It originated from appreciation for music that supported people throughout times of joy, sadness, uncertainty, and worship. And no one knows it better than Mark Lowry. Finally, though, Mark shows us that loving doesn't always entail returning. Love sometimes entails preserving what was lovely by allowing it to remain in its proper place. The Gaither Vocal Band was more than just a bunch of singers. It was a time in life, a chapter full of moments of faith that will never be repeated, long nights spent traveling, secret jokes that no one else heard, and shared prayers. Despite its failure, that chapter did not end. Because it was finished, it came to an end. It would be necessary to act as though time had never passed in order to attempt to restore it to its former state. Those individuals didn't develop. That hearts remained unchanged, and Mark is aware it would be dishonest to himself, the men he used to call brothers, and the audience. The lack of a villain in this tale is what makes this realization so poignant. No treachery, no significant disagreement. Simply said, human lives are moving in various ways, and since there is nothing to change, it may be more difficult to accept than fighting. Nothing needs to be fixed. There is nothing to blame. Mark's candor is not motivated by resentment. It originates from tranquility. It took years to achieve peace. A tranquility formed by contemplation, faith, and the knowledge that God's work is seasonal. Certain seasons are public and noisy. Some are reserved and intimate. Both are important. He is aware that some admirers believe a reunion will make everything better, that in some way, hearing those voices together once more would make up for what time has taken. However, Mark kindly reminds us that mending doesn't always entail reconstruction. At times, it appears to be respecting the past without making it reappear. The song is still relevant today. The impact is still alive. Around the world, people are still moved by the music in living rooms, cars, hospitals, and churches. The mere fact that the group is no longer united on a stage does not erase their legacy. Perhaps that is the most crucial lesson of all. Certain items are not intended to be returned because they have already fulfilled their intended use. The story of Mark Lowry serves as a reminder that faith is not about clinging to the past. It's about having faith that, despite changes in form, God's activity never stops. Even if the stage appears different, even if the voices we cherish are no longer singing together. Another chapter is not necessary for the Gaither Vocal Band to demonstrate its value. Its tale has already been written with worship, sorrow, laughter, and harmony, and time has not altered that tale. It's acceptable for fans to experience sadness. It's acceptable to long for the past. However, it's also acceptable to let go of the notion that everything significant needs to return in order to be authentic. Mark's last fact is an invitation to remember with thankfulness rather than anticipation, not a door closing. Should listen once more, appreciating the gift that has already been offered rather than longing for a reunion. To realize that sometimes saying farewell without remorse is the most faithful course of action. Thus, the question no longer seems unanswered. Why won't the Gaither Vocal Band ever fully reunite? Since it does not need to. Since what they had in common was genuine. Because what they produced is still alive. Additionally, some harmonies are meant to reverberate indefinitely through memory rather than repetition.